Looking for that great next read or your new favorite author? Check out Amy's Bookshelf Reviews recommendations. You won't be disappointed. Welcome to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. It is a spin-off of the website and book review site of Amy's Bookshelf Reviews. Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast is about book reviews, a writer's muse, a book's peruse, author interviews, and literary news. Welcome to the new year, where new things may happen with this. I hope you all enjoy, and thank you for listening. Good evening, listeners. I'm Amy Shannon, and welcome to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. Today we are joined by an author. Please introduce yourself and let the audience know how they can connect with you.
My name is Karl Trautman, and I have a website, karltrautman.com. It's KarlTrautman.com, and that has my that has a lot of links to my books, some of my past writings as well, and I actually did some podcasts years ago as well, some of those as well. So that's a way to actually kind of just dovetail into what I've been doing. I have published fiction books and also nonfiction books, and again podcasts, and I was a newspaper columnist as well. So it's really type of just a way to get to know some of the things that I've created in the past. And as for email, you can reach me at karltrautman@yahoo.com. It's pretty straightforward if you'd like to get in touch with me. So that's a little bit of introduction to myself.
Well, thank you. So you've mentioned you've written fiction and nonfiction. And so which book are you going to talk about today?
Well, I'd like to talk about my fiction series. I have a 4-book fiction series. It's called the Montford Schmidt series. And it is basically...
That's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, Montford Schmidt.
I was thinking Manford.
He's called Manny. So yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Sure. They're a very German name. So, it's basically a 4-book series which chronicles someone's life basically from the age of about 15 to about the age of about 32. And the book basically is kind of they're structured. The 4 books are structured into time periods where they follow periods of times in the character's life as he grows up and matures and not matures and moves around and does different things. And that's why I'd like to be talking about that 4-book series. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love the series. So, and anyways, so what inspired you to write the first one?
Well, thanks, Amy. I appreciate that question. I kept a journal most of my life for many years, and maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I decided to start reading them over again, and I wanted to take some of my experiences, because the 4 books are books of fiction, but they've got elements of truth, elements of a non-truth in it, exaggeration. Mm-hmm. So I'm pretty much a person who says, if it's nonfiction, that means everything must be accurate, as best as you can remember, and anything else is fiction. So
as long as it makes sense, it doesn't have to be something that happened in real life, or but if it makes sense to the story that even if it's impossible but it could happen, that's what I believe is fiction. I mean, real life is stranger than fiction, so
So what inspired me is to read some of my old journals and said, you know what, this could be a story. And so I decided to reread them, and then I decided to they were actually in handwritten notes in a journal, and type them up in a word processor, and that gave me the process of trying to read about what I have done, and then craft that into into a story, and it turned it up into 4 books.
Yeah, and great 4 books, I must say.
Well, I appreciate that. And the process of doing it was interesting because as I remembered what I was writing in my journal and it turned that into a story, I could craft a narrative and I could really go where I wanted to. I could put things in that I really did. I could make up things that I never really did. I could exaggerate. I could omit. And it was so freeing doing that because my job is I've been a college teacher for most of my life. And it's basically you try to teach what's out there and the facts and interpretation.
Right.
But in fiction, you've got so much ability to narrate and to weave that it was very freeing personally for me.
Yeah, I completely understand that. When I have a lot of notebooks, I write in notebooks. Now I can't read my handwriting very much, but and I just, I like the fact that I could just sit down and just write. And when I have to stop to think about it, then that's when I stop. I don't want to think about it. I just wanted to go. Like, I let the characters drive me, or just, I might be inspired by, I've written books because I had a quote in my head in my dream and I wrote it down, and then that's what started a book, this quote that had to happen in the story. So I understand the freedom and being able to just sit and write and, whatever your imagination comes up with, even like, I do research for my fiction books. If I have a doctor or a police officer or a character that I don't know a lot about their occupation, so I do research, but it's still, I give them a lot of leeway. I have a doctor who, she doesn't speak in medical jargon because she wants her patients to understand her, which is a great help for me because I would have to look up every word.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, Amy, because in my books, my fiction books, they go around a lot of the central things that are political developments. And with the internet, I can go back into what happened at what time, and then be able to anchor some of the things that happened in my character's life to real events. And then I do like to put it's kind of a nice anchor and a kind of a way to make the story go off in different directions, and but it structures it too, which is nice.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Have you, like you said, you were writing in journals. How long have you how long were you writing in journals?
Oh, I must have started maybe I don't know, 9, 10 years old.
Oh.
And I haven't kept those journals, but when looking at my journals that I've kept on a regular basis, really starting when perhaps in my late teenage years, early 20s. So I'm fairly old, so it's been a long time, and I've got books of journals, and going through them is like both a wonderful treasure box and a nightmare. Depends on what I see, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But what's important is that I remember how I felt at that time about a particular issue, event, anything, you name it. And that brings back that time to me. And then when it brings back that time, then I can go off and let the story follow that or go off in a different direction. But it's raw material, which is just, to me, is very powerful stuff.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Can you imagine if you kept your journals from when you were 10?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that would be.
I wish I
something.
had mine. I used to write poetry and short stories in my teenage years, but when I was younger, I would actually my mom, she couldn't get me to shut up because she called me her little storyteller, because I would just make up stories since I could talk. And then once I could write, I would write them down to only have that, and I try to put myself in that 4-year-old's shoes and driving her mom up the wall because she has a new version of the Three Bears.
Yeah.
But
No, when I go back and read them, it's like I'm right there. The words come alive to me because obviously I wrote them,
yeah.
and then that really helps my writing. And And so it's a great, to me, it's great, kind of raw materials for which to start. And I like the handwriting too, because, as you pointed out a couple minutes ago, you don't, if you're on a word processor, there's a computer, there's so many distractions. Perhaps you can edit it, do thesaurus, word choice. But if you sit down with a piece of paper and a pen, just whatever is in your head, let it flow out. And then later you can delete some, edit it, or, that kind of stuff. But let it first come out. So.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. I have, I've saved my notebooks, I think, for about 20 years. And, when I first started writing, I have some journals that were, I had written and was able to save. But sometimes things just get lost, but I understand, like, you get to that point, and when a reader reads your work, you can feel what is, the emotions that come off the page, whether they're, if he's upset, or he's, focused on doing something, or he feels like he's all over the place,
right.
Then you can actually feel that. Plus, I have this, whenever I read a story, I can tell how much passion the person put into writing it. And I've read millions of books, so, you kind of get a feel for that. And, the ones that I read, a lot of books that they're a lot alike. I mean, different characters, different situations, but, the ending is around the same, and so, I'm not.
I've also found it very useful to working with an editor, because I've had a couple editors, and they, when they read a first draft, they do have fresh eyes and say, okay, I don't understand this, or where does this go? And it allows me to, make things clearer, or see connections that I didn't see. So, editors can be, if you get a good one, they can really help you out with, with stories.
Yeah, I can understand that. I have done editing work for several authors, and, I ask them, okay, what do you want me to look for if there's something specific? Because I do content editing, not just,
copy editing, right?
Yeah, I don't, just that. And, so when I send it back to them, they're like, oh yeah, that's just the kind of thing that I was looking for. Those are the questions that I had. So
yeah, it's kind of like the process of writing, where, at least for me, you can go out and write what you want, it's what's on your mind, but then the editor is almost a different mindset. So you almost, you're analytical, and you look for consistencies or whatever. It's a different type of focus, and so it's a different way of doing it. And I do some editing myself before, like I just actually finished a book of short stories, but for my 4 fiction books, I took them into an editor, and they came back, and just the process of them finding things that I didn't see, is just it really helps my writing, which is good.
Yeah, and I think that authors think that they have to have, or they can't afford a professional editor. Mine, I do on a sliding scale, because I know that authors, they can't always afford the high prices. So that's one of the things that I do.
But one thing I found myself been able to do is, it's not my favorite thing, to be honest with you, Amy, but is, after my editors have looked at my books and made suggestions and all this, before I send it to them again, I think, okay, this is some of the things that I could work on. So I edit my own work, sometimes again and again, and it becomes better. And I can only do it for a little while, because it's, you're having to delete whole paragraphs. Like, wow, this is really well crafted paragraph, in my opinion. But you know what? You said the same thing basically 2 paragraphs ago. So you just cut it out, right?
Yeah, exactly. And one thing that I do when I'm doing self-editing, or even editing for someone else, is that I read it aloud,
Yeah.
and reading it aloud especially helps with dialogue to see how it sounds,
Yeah.
and makes
That's good.
sense. Because not everybody doesn't talk in contraction. I mean, most people do not talk without contractions or, various types of words and phrases.
Yeah.
And then I have the computer read it to me so I can sit back and listen to every single word. And I find that, reading it out loud and listening to it, it forces you to listen or see every single word. I mean, sometimes if you're reading it, your eyes might gloss over it because you already know,
Right. To go to the next one.
thing. So
Exactly right.
you don't always pick up stuff. And then I also make sure that, if it's going to be, in a paperback book, I print it out and read it that way. If it's going to be on a Kindle, I will create a file and send it to my Kindle to see how it reads.
Yeah. Smart. And a book that I actually listened to maybe 10 years ago, I'm not sure. I live in Maine, so, one of the best writers, I think, and, famous writer, very great writer, Stephen King from Maine. He wrote a book called On Writing, and I listened to that, and it really helped me a lot. And things that stick in my mind are two things that he wrote in the book. He says, write what you know and tell the truth. And I keep going back to those two things. Now, it doesn't mean I write all that I know, and it doesn't mean I tell the full truth, but the essential truth of that statement to me, if you just go back to write what you know and tell the truth, then you could really have a powerful, I think, an anchor towards producing something that could be a good story.
Oh, definitely. One of the things I kind of say the same thing to new writers. And actually, I've put all my experience and advice in a book I just recently published to help writers. But I always tell them, write what you know, but then write what you want to know. So
Yeah,
that way you do research and you're learning something, and then you can use that in your book and you've learned something.
good. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. So yeah, my fourth in the Manfred Schmidt series is, again, it's starts off actually in 1974 and it ends in just before 1993. So it goes through a lot of there's a lot of scenes in different parts of the books, but it does follow the character's development and also closely tracks with politics as well and political developments in the United States. So that's I kind of wanted to make that have the stories dovetail that, and that's how I structure my books too. So
Yeah, and it makes sense because as you read, when you start out reading, and then number one, and I always tell authors or readers that if you have a book that has a series, um, always, even if they're standalone books in a series, always start from volume one. I said you learn about the characters,
yep,
you learn about backstories that may not be mentioned in future books. You also learn the writer's writing style, and
yep,
then every reader should, and no, it doesn't matter if you publish one book, or excuse me, two books or 100 books, that every time you write, your writing gets better. Your
yep, I
characters
agree.
have more depth and personality, and so
The first fiction book that I wrote is Deacon Blues, and if I could talk just a minute or two about that. That is, it's really the title is basically two things. It's a song by Steely Dan, the old rock group, which I enjoy,
I thought
and
that sounded
also
familiar.
Deacon Blues. It's a pretty old song, but I think it's good. It's Steely Dan, and it's a book a lot about Jimmy Carter, the American president,
Yeah.
and Jimmy Carter's Secret Service name was Deacon, and so the first book takes the character, right, and starts off really in 1974, and it ends right before the election if I can remember my timeline, got 4 books think of 1980, and goes into the period of American political life and the character, Manny Schmidt, from 1974 to 1980. So if you're interested in, it was to me a tremendous amount of change in American politics from one era to the next. And I think understanding that, and perhaps through a fictional character, could help people, be interesting for people to maybe understand what's going on today, or the trajectory of American politics.
Yeah, and maybe it can, I would see that, there are people that, they weren't born then.
Right.
But, and
so it could offer a little bit of history lesson to people who weren't born there, and to just understand the past, because these books are set in the past.
Yeah.
But to understand what happened, in a fictionalized way, I think would be useful. And because a lot of times people just don't read history; they don't know the past, or they know part of it. And I think a fuller understanding, particularly in a fiction book, can really can be really powerful.
Oh, definitely. And I can see somebody Googling Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, he lived a long time, and
yeah,
he really did. And so the first book has the character. He's really the character's hero, and watches what happens to Jimmy Carter from a president who got elected and did a lot of good things, but then was not reelected in 1980 and lost to Ronald Reagan. And also part of the 4-book series, and this is it starts off really in the second book, has to do with a vision that the character develops about something happening that's nefarious and secret. And that is a kind of a subplot that I put into this series, starting, I believe, in the second book, and that runs through the rest of it. It's kind of a mystery, but as they say, you have to read the book to know what it is. But it's based upon actually real events, though. Real events.
Wow. Yeah. I love it when authors kind of, they teach a lesson, or the reader learns something that they didn't know before, but then they didn't even realize that they just learned something, because they're so into the story. I mean, even when I've done editing for authors, then I take, when it's all said and done, I read it from the beginning to the end as a reader would. And then I'll write my review on it. And that's how I think that authors, don't always look at their work as just a reader. They're looking at it as the author, and, oh, I have to make changes. This isn't perfect, and I think that if every author, made more changes or updated their book, no one would ever get it published.
Right. I mean, to me,
it's not perfect. So
you have to actually make a decision. And as a writer, yes, everything can be revised and made better, but at some point you turn it in to get published or to the editor, and then you take the edits, and then you make a decision and let it go. And because you can just see how it goes. It's a lot of process of letting go. But like in writing Deacon Blues, I had somebody read it at a conference, I think at Cape Cod, the writers conference, and then I got some comments on it, and then the first chapter there's something about it that didn't quite make sense, or didn't do something. So I wrote the first chapter, or the first few pages of the first chapter at the very end after writing it. I only knew what the first chapter would be like after writing the book.
Huh? Sometimes that happens. I wrote a book backwards once.
If you can just leave, if you can just leave yourself open to how the story develops, then it becomes clear, this is what it's about. But I didn't know that without having it go through first. So a lot of it was patience for me, because I wanted to say, okay, not the best first chapter, it's okay, but if a book, but I just kept it open, and then it suddenly clicked in. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's really, that's what it's all about. And you said the word patience, and that is one of the things that I tell authors, especially new authors. They get impatient because they want their work published immediately.
Right.
And there's a lot of work that goes into it, editing and various things. And whether you have a publisher or not, you still have to work, do work yourself too, promote and make sure it's ready to go before it actually goes.
Right. And I say to myself, okay, if the book is, if it took 3 years to write the book, you can wait another month or two before it comes out. It doesn't have to come out, the next day or whatever. You can still wait a bit longer.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Well, I really enjoyed our conversation, and I look forward to reading more of your work. I think I've only read your fiction, but I would be honored to read any of your nonfiction, so you can send those to me if you wish.
Thank you, Amy. Appreciate that.
And then I'll just close off the podcast. If you wish for you or your book to be on the show, go to amysbookshelfreviews.com/podcast. Thank you for listening. Be safe, be well, and always be kind.
Thank you for listening to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews. If you are looking to be on the podcast or looking for a book review, you can go to amysbookshelfreviews.com and look for the appropriate navigational menu. Again, thank you all for listening and being a supporter of this podcast and of the Amy's Bookshelf Reviews professional reviewers of books and audiobooks. Thank you all. Be safe and be well.